Hey everybody, Aaron back with you. It's been a while since I've gotten a podcast out, so I'm really excited to bring this one to you today. Today on the podcast, we have with me Dr. Rachel Kowert. She's the research director for the organization Take This and the science content creator for Psychgeist, which is on YouTube. So this was such a cool episode because I'm very passionate about video games and their positive mental health effects, and really making sure that that's used as a coping mechanism for people with anxiety and depression, which is really cool because so is Dr. Kowert. And it was awesome because we talked about a lot of great things, especially the positive effects of gaming, but also, to be non-biased, the negative effects of gaming, because there are some that needed to be addressed and there's some that people need to know about. So if you're a gamer, if you like video games, this is a great podcast to listen to. If you're not into gaming, there's a lot of really cool educational stuff that we talk about. So feel free to tune in. I'd love comments, feedback, everything about this one, because I was so excited to talk about this. But that's all I have. I'm going to dive right into it. Let's roll. Rachel Kowert. She's the research director of the organization nonprofit Take This and the science content creator Psychgeist on YouTube. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So the way I always try to say like how I got in contact with the guest, and this is a little different because I was reading, it's the ESRB, I believe is what it is. ESR.
Entertainment Software Ratings Board.
Board. I was thinking, I'm like, I think that's how it is. But I was reading an article on there, and I was reading about how the benefits of gaming are actually more positive not as opposed to negative, but there's a lot more positives that aren't looked upon. So I looked up your name, and lo and behold, we have this really weird connection with both of our nonprofits are kind of linked in the same sense of like PAX. So I reached out and you said, yeah, let's talk about this. So no, like I said, I'm super excited to talk with you today about gaming, about everything. I mean, we had a blast just talking for the last 10 minutes already, but
we did. Yes. Thank you. I'm always happy to talk about games. So let's do it.
Absolutely. So tell me first and foremost, how exactly you said you're a mom of 3, right?
I am.
Are you a gamer?
I am.
I think that's a great question to start out with. So, because it's like, she's just a doctor, she's not a gamer, whatever. No, that's good though, because then you have a good frame of reference to what you're actually talking about, as I think a lot of people, when they come out with these studies, maybe don't know about it.
Oh, 100%. I think that having the experience with games is so important to being able to really draw these conclusions. I think a lot of times when people are like, games are whatever it is to the extreme, are people who don't play games, because when you play them, you realize they can be tools for good. And there can be some bad things that we can talk about too. But at the end of the day, it's entertainment media. It's not this like mysterious, nebulous thing that's like changing the world in drastically terrible ways.
Right. And, and I never understood that because, games get this super bad rep just because of their quote unquote violence, or they're just the ones that are destroying our kids' minds. Well, why can't we say the same about TV, music, and, other forms? I mean, even sports could be in that line. Why does gaming get that bad rap?
Yeah, I mean, we have said it about television and movies and comic books and Dungeons and Dragons and rock and roll and all these other things that came before it. But what's different about games is that this moral panic, as we like to call it, has lasted longer. So we've had this moral panic in and around games for about 50 years. And there are a few theories as to why it maintains so strongly, in the public discourse. Part of it is sensationalized news media. You see something violent happen and immediately the headline is it's video games. So that gets linked together just in people's minds. And the other aspect of it is their representation in pop culture. And you can think about that famous South Park episode that I always bring up, Make Love Not Warcraft, where the kids get overweight and socially inept as they play games, or even Thor in the latest Endgame, right? You see him, he's Fat Thor, everybody calls him, right? And he's playing video games and eating pizza. So these are the ideas that people have about games. So no wonder they are perceived negatively.
And that's just so weird because I can think of hundreds of instances where, either a movie has played a role in somebody's life that's made them do something bad. Or, I look at Aurora, Colorado, the shooter was all about the Joker and being that. So games in itself are entertainment, as we said, but it just always has this negative connotation, which by rights, there are some things like you said, but there are positives of it. Obviously, I don't think you can say, hey, there's a super big positive about GTA and, go around and stealing cars and stuff. But what it does is, again, it comes down to its entertainment and it's how you use it, I would believe.
It is how you use it. And GTA is a great example because I recently got turned on to Twitch. They do, there's Grand Theft Auto RP servers, and they've become my husband's guilty pleasure. And every once in a while, when I stay up past 10, I got 3 kids, usually I'm in bed. I go down and I watch, and it's incredible. So we could talk about the positives that have come out, the worlds that these people have created. Role playing in GTA, they're very entertaining.
It's almost like I hopefully I don't date myself here. It's like Second Life again, and basically
Second Life is still running.
Is it really?
I was also surprised.
I can't believe that. I
it's
actually
still
can't.
A thing.
Oh man, that was back when I was in like high school. Oh my God.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah. But yes.
Well, it's funny you say that because the other day I was on Twitch and I was just kind of scrolling through who my followers are and whatnot and see what they were doing. And then all of a sudden I went to this one and he was playing GTA. I don't know if it's called like RP or like you said, but he was a cop and he was going around and like arresting and doing like cop things, which appeals to me because I was a police officer for 12 years. So I'm like, hey, I like watching this. And then I'm like, maybe I should start playing this, and getting back into it and feeling that way. And I see how they're trying to do good in a game that could be, perceived as negative.
For sure. And even they have people who work at like the burger shop. Like they're RPing, like making burgers. And loving it.
There was another one I saw that they were like just a gas station attendant. And I'm like, that's so crazy. That, you just immerse yourself in this world. And again,
you do.
That's a really cool thing.
And you talk about positives, that's, boosting creativity. There's teamwork there. There's, acting skills. Like there's positives that can be taken out of these games that are, GTA is always the headline, right? But even traditional GTA, there's multitasking and time management. And there's things that you can say, even if the theme of the game is crime. Right.
And so then my question would be and maybe we can kind of answer this together if need be. Why is it that, let's just say, since we're focusing on Grand Theft Auto, why is that one so specifically like it makes those headlines? Because of the violence, because of what you can do in it? But like, kind of explain what you think on that.
I think it's because of the content of the game specifically. So when it came out, it was pretty pioneering in the sense that it was a game about committing crimes.
Right.
And a lot of people in the very beginning were very concerned about the role of prostitutes in the game. And this is also back in the day when there wasn't very much research about video game effects. And to be fair, from the outside in, I can see how you could assume strong effects. It's interactive. It's a new technology. Younger people are attracted to engaging in it for long periods of time. So I can see that. We know now that it has little to no effect. So why it persists now, maybe it's just an artifact from the past. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy about it, because I give a little training about, mental health in video games. And we always talk about like, it's a lot of, yes, it's self-control, it's self-regulation, but it's also, if you are a younger person, like teenager, even I'll say preteen, you have to understand that a lot of that comes from parents monitoring what their kids are doing as well. So if your kid's acting out or you're doing something, I would assume the parent has to have some sort of stake in it.
Yes. I mean, parents should be involved, in all areas of their child's life, but video games in particular, I did a thing with Take This and with Dr. B, who's the clinical director of Take This with the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA, providing a pamphlet, so to say, for parents about how to engage with your children when it comes to games. You really have to be involved, and it goes beyond looking at the age rating, which is important, and you should do that. But looking over your child's shoulder, what are you doing? Why are you ruining everybody else's good time in this game. Like, whatever it is, like the parents need to be engaged about what they're doing.
It's funny because that reminds me of, I believe Terry Crews. He did an interview where he talked about how he got into Twitch and computer gaming with his son because that's what he was into. And he goes, I didn't know anything about it, but I learned and I associated myself with it so I could better, bond with my son. And I said, that's such a great role model to show, like, look, maybe I don't understand this world, so let me help me learn. And I think a lot of people need to do that before they start throwing shade at something.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like it's so much an easier sell to get parents to be into fencing or soccer or whatever it is their kids. But then you hit video games and there seems to be this wall, like, maybe it's a technology competence that they're afraid of. I'm not sure, but it's like any other activity that your kids want to engage in. You just got to throw yourself in there and give it a go.
Well, and now, especially more than ever, we were talking about Twitch. People make living off of Twitch. They create content. They do what they do on Twitch. But then you go into the whole realm of esports and explaining the concept of esports to people. It's almost like trying to teach them calculus when they're 1 year old. It's like, it doesn't work. And they ask me all the time, what is it about esports? Why do you sit and watch somebody playing a game? I said, why do you watch football on Sunday? You watch somebody play a game. It's all about, it's a whole nother realm. Again, I think maybe they're nervous about it or they're afraid. I don't know. What's your take on that?
That's a great analogy. It's just like watching football. It's just like watching baseball. It's watching people compete in a game. The game just happens to be digital. And I hear a lot of shade also about like Twitch. Why do you watch other people play games? But I was the younger sister. And in my house, we love first-person role-playing games. And I grew up watching my brother play Final Fantasies and enjoying the story and living vicariously through him. Now, as a parent of 3, I don't have time to play Final Fantasies. But you know what? I got time to watch other people play them.
Right.
So we've been doing it forever. It's just now we can do it on the internet.
It's awesome too, because I just the other day I was at a benefit for a golf outing, and I was talking with somebody who wanted me to explain what Twitch was. They said in a nutshell. So I said, watching somebody play a game and kind of just interacting with them while they're playing. And they're like, well, why would you pay somebody? Or like, why would you donate to them or tip them or subscribe to them? I said, if you want to look at it in the same sense of why do people buy a jersey for the football team? Why do they support their team that way? It's the same thing, but they're also creating content and entertainment for you. And I think that's just so important for people to understand. It's not something that's going to go away, at least in my opinion. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be here for the long haul.
Yes, and it's exploded over the last year from COVID quarantine. And even beyond entertainment, research is showing that these communities that form around Twitch are very supportive, bolsters for mental health. They have been over the last year when people have been quarantined and really provide, emotional and social communities and support. They're not just frivolous places.
Right, exactly. And you talk about, and a perfect example, creating your community. There are so many different communities that I have engaged in since I started this position that I would have never thought I would be interested in. But then I started to immerse myself and I realized this is like a family. It's a really cool place to be yourself if you feel like you aren't yourself. Same token, I have been this big advocate of Discord from the beginning. I feel like Discord has been this hub where that has saved people from loneliness and COVID. I think you're always able to, and if people are familiar with what Discord is, I would say like a phone call / message board kind of thing. And I think the ways that now gaming has evolved, where you're not necessarily in the same room with somebody, but you're still always talking with somebody, you're interacting, you're communicating, that has very big positive social benefits that aren't being seen.
Oh, absolutely. Take This has a Discord. I like to call it the most wholesome place on the internet. and it's great because we stream. So we're streaming and we have our community there, but we only stream once a week. So the rest of the week, we have this little app in our phone where we can just check in and, there's channels for wholesome memes or people just talk about the food they're making.
Right.
And being able to not just communicate with people who have shared interests and know that you can communicate with people in real time. That's really the difference here. And when we look at the research about Twitch, that's really the main thing between watching YouTube content and Twitch content. There's something special about knowing that person is there right now interacting.
And maybe because I clearly you can see my clinical side of all of this is amazing. But like, as far as like going back to Twitch and people that would support their content creator.
Yes.
There's got to be some positive about, hey, I tipped them $2 to have them notice me or to like have them say something or an interest of what. There's got to be some positive correlation with that, even though you're giving them money to do it. There's got to be something there.
For sure. So we like to talk, I like to talk about the relationships that we have with streamers. We call them parasocial relationships in the scientific world.
Sure.
This term came about in the 1950s to explain the relationship and the connection that we felt with newscasters. So you have your favorite news team, your favorite news channel. You would get messages from Channel 6 or whatever, and you would trust them because Channel 6 was your channel.
Yeah.
Well, we have the same sense of affinity for our Twitch streamers. So yeah, getting a shout out or seeing them raise money for your favorite charity, or just even if you don't get a shout out, just feeling like you're contributing and helping them create this content that means so much to you. There's definitely some tangible social and emotional benefits there. There's this research study that I love to bring up every time I talk about parasocial relationships. It's not mine, but I wish it was. It's so good. Where they looked at Twitter after Jon Snow's death in Game of Thrones. And that's a parasocial relationship, right? He's not a real character. We don't have a real relationship with him. He's not even real.
Right.
But the stages of grief that people, if you took the content analysis, was the same as the stages of grief that we experience when a person we know dies. Like these relationships we have with Twitch streamers and Jon Snow emotionally are meaningful.
Yeah. That, and that, I guess I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that makes total sense. And you're so invested in something or someone, whether they're fake or real. If something happens, it can be that kind of emotional roller coaster. I totally can see that.
Yeah, and the shared experiences that you have with Twitch when they're playing games further solidify those bonds with the streamer and the other members of the community.
And then even to go a step further with that, I can't even imagine the connection then when you go on Twitter, you go on Reddit, Twitch, whatever, that people are talking about it. You're all in this whole thing together. Yeah, how that has to just be a bond too in itself.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's a shared experience, and it absolutely creates fast bonds, faster than if I just met somebody on the street, right? Because I already know I have shared experiences, shared memories, inside jokes, like all of these things that we share as a community, even though I've never met the other people.
Right. It's amazing. I know, like, from how we started talking about it to like going to Twitch and Discord and all this stuff, but that's exactly what gaming has evolved to. Is it's not the quote unquote sitting in your parents' basement gaming. It's not that. It's completely different. And like you said, the Make Love Not Warcraft episode of South Park, people have that envisioned that that's what a gamer is. And I always say to people, and I love it because my mom gets so mad at me. She'll play like, her little gaming slot machines on her iPad, or she'll play like Candy Crush or whatever. And I'm like, Mom, you're a gamer. She goes, I am not. Don't you talk to me that way. And she's the old school. So it's fun because gaming now brings more connection to people. And the one thing that I have to say, for example, is we went to a local high school and they have like these things called like mini courses where they block out a set of the day. And it's like different activities, non-school related. So what we did was we came in, we have a bunch of, systems that we bring in, and we did like a gaming for your mental health. So just to kind of take a break, play some games, whatever. So we put out a couple switches, and all of a sudden people, first day were like, okay, this is kind of cool. Then the next day, 3 kids brought their own switches in. And then, the next day it was another one. And then all of a sudden they're all sitting at this table playing Mario Kart, random fun game everybody likes. They're all talking to each other, interacting. And I was talking to the teacher of it, and he goes, I have never seen those kids interact before in my entire life.
Cool.
And I'm like, that's exactly what it was supposed to do.
That gave me goosebumps.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
And that's the thing too. Cool. Even though they have nothing in common, they have Mario Kart in common for that specific moment, and they forget about all that weirdness and anxiety that they have meeting somebody. So I love gaming in that sense because it does wonders for people.
Absolutely. It's an icebreaker. It gives you built-in topics for conversation. You know, when I was doing my PhD, it was focused on the social environment of online spaces. And that's exactly it, you know, for people who maybe are anxious or, have trouble meeting somebody new or are quarantined in their home for a year. Having that shared fun, inherently social activity is a really good way it's easier than being like, hi, I'm Rachel. Like it gives you something to start with and to engage with together.
Yeah. And like you said, that's a perfect icebreaker to kind of dive into a conversation if you don't know somebody.
Sure.
But so we talk about like in that article, I kind of refer back to it. You talk about like leadership skills and talking about how they actually can, you know, certain games can form that sort of leadership. Like give some more examples. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I like when I talk about this on my YouTube channel, I always say all roads lead to MMOs because I feel every road about research go taste the MMOs, but it's the perfect example for leadership skills. Old school World of Warcraft. I played old school vanilla World of Warcraft. You would have raids of 40 people, 40 people that you had to get on the server at the same time and organize. If that's not leadership skills, I don't know what it is, but it would require you to, you know, not only organize people into smaller segments of groups, give people smaller tasks, the kinds of things that managers do all the time in the real world. It was providing the opportunity for leaders to emerge that wouldn't normally get to have that role. So like 16-year-olds leading group of 40-year-olds or people in, you know, one part of the world leading people in another part of the world. And those are experiences that you wouldn't normally have. So I was a leader of a kind in my guild in my young 20s, and there were people in my guild who were in their 40s or in their 50s. Would I ever have that experience again? Probably not, but it was very cool.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. And for listeners that maybe don't have an idea what World of Warcraft is or anything, go look up Leroy Jenkins. You'll find out real fast. So
you'll find out how to ruin a raid.
Exactly. Yes. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be anybody that wouldn't know at least what that is, but I've been proven wrong before. I got emails saying, I don't know what that was. Explain it more. So that's why I have to explain things now. But anyway, so yeah, exactly. And I mean, you look at other games in specific, Age of Empires, SimCity is a great example, I think, of like leadership and planning and developing. You have to always be thinking. And I think those games get left in the dust because of those high profile flash, you know, Grand Theft Auto, those kind of games. Whereas there are so many games that bring a completely different side to the genre itself.
For sure. Like all of those strategy games, like you were mentioning, Age of Empires, Civilization, they require you to juggle a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air at one time, so to say. Like, what kind of resources do you have? You have to learn. You have to educate yourself on like, how do these mechanics work and how do these work and how do they work together and how do I time these things? And if I do this on turn 1, on turn 3, I can do this. Like there's a lot of mental gymnastics happening. And research has found that these skills that we're practicing as we're having fun, we're willingly practicing them, are skills we can then take into the real world and use in other contexts.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And I always like talking about the different types of games because the only games that get massive amounts of attention are shooters.
Shooter games.
Yeah, it's those that are very, you have to be very, you know, I guess what's the right word? Multitasking and constantly thinking, doing something, moving your hands, dexterous, I believe is the right word. But you're always having to do something. But then I'll bring up this, there's this one game that I have played. I played it literally for a month straight on our Twitch channel, was the Telltale series, The Walking Dead. It's to compare it to anything. It's like reading a book with very minimal effort to actually do something while playing the game. It's like
choose
reading
your
a
own
book.
Adventure style.
That's exactly it. And I spent a month playing this game, and then at the end of it, I start bawling my eyes out because I was so invested in this thing. And I'm doing this on Twitch in front of people, and I'm thinking like, I have never had something affect me this emotionally, but it was such a great journey the whole time. So for the people that are, you know, book readers, totally, that's great. But there's other genres that might appeal to you in gaming as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up The Walking Dead, because I know of a couple educators over in Europe who use that game specifically in their university courses to teach moral decision making.
Oh my
So
gosh.
even game, like, do you let this person get eaten by the zombie, or do you chop off their leg and now they're maimed for life, but they might survive? These and then they tag it on to theories and things.
Talk about Goosebumps.
I know.
I'm replaying that in my head.
I only played the first couple chapters. I know. I played the first couple chapters. I couldn't take it.
You need to get off of this and play the rest of it because it's so good.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I love that game. I love the aesthetic, everything about it. So yeah, but that's a really good point. There are lots of genres. There are games for even my mom plays word puzzle games.
Yes.
Your mom plays slot machine.
Yep.
Like there's all kinds of different games for every kind of person. So if you don't want your child playing Fortnite, maybe there's another game, maybe Animal Crossing might be more your style. There's something for everyone. And,
and I don't even want to take away the fact of like certain apps that people like on our iPad at home. My 3-year-old plays this, it's called Kidtopia, and he gets to be creative and learn and like create a pizza with different things or like, and I think about that's teaching him creativity. That's teaching him the essence of how to do something. So I can't just say games are bad, they're negative, because there are positive effects that people need to see, but it's just not always going to be that way, unfortunately. So I know we talk about, hey, games are great, they're positive, they do all this stuff. I would be remiss to talk about that there's obviously negative things about gaming that you probably have learned as a researcher, as a doctor. What would be those negative things in your opinion?
I can tell you, I'll give you, here's the top 3 I hear, and I can tell you whether there's validity or not. The first is about violent games making people more aggressive or violent, which has been thoroughly disproven in the literature, not a thing. The second is antisocial, which I think we've talked about. Games make you antisocial. They make you reclusive. You're in a basement. I think we thoroughly covered that is not true. They're very social spaces. The third is gaming addiction. Now, gaming addiction is a bone of contention in the research community. The World Health Organization has gone forward to categorize it as a disorder, but the American Psychiatric Association has not. They have it in their diagnostic manual as something that requires further research. And most scholars also fall in that camp because there's no evidence to suggest that games themselves have some unique quality that is leading to addiction and maladaptive outcomes. Now, that said, people do use games in problematic ways.
Yes,
for sure.
Oh,
It just seems more likely it's a maladaptive coping strategy at that point, rather than the games are uniquely the source of the issues. Right. So I'd say like the main kind of negative thing would be overuse, problematic use, what people colloquially call addiction, but isn't really a true addiction.
Sure. I mean, there's a difference between sitting down and playing a game for 3 hours that you're invested in, as opposed to spending 18 hours playing that same game, ignoring other aspects of your life.
That's key. Because I could play for 18 hours.
So could I.
If I have a babysitter and I'm not supposed to be at work, okay. But if I'm supposed to be at work and my kids are not being watched, then it's a problem.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, it's all like any other addiction or any other vice, I guess you could say. If it's starting to affect key areas of your life, then it becomes a problem. If not, then you're able to handle it. You can cope with things correctly, then it's just entertainment, and it's a way for you to cope with whatever you're going through or anything like that. Because I think about it when I was growing up, I have anxiety and depression, and I wasn't diagnosed with anything until I was 28. So I'm 35 now, and learning that for the first 27, 28 years, I thought this is just the way this is how life is. You're always worrying about something. What I never realized was I always went to gaming to kind of escape that thought. And that's where, as long as I would have used it in the appropriate sense of setting limits, setting boundaries, it was a total wonderful coping mechanism for me. But until it goes to that different realm, then I think that's an issue.
Well, yeah, but you brought up a key word, which I'm going to have to jump on, which is escapism. And that's exactly what it is. We all need a stress release, and games are a great escape. Now, generally speaking, games are seen not as a good escape, right? People are like, oh, you're escaping into these virtual worlds. Okay, well, I'm escaping into a good book. I have books.
Yes.
You can see my bookshelf behind me.
Right.
Nobody has a problem with that, right? I escape into a Netflix series. Nobody's got a problem with that. But if it's a game, all of a sudden it's a problem. But it's not. They're great tools for that.
Piggybacking on that, two things. One, obviously this is not a video, like I don't put this out video wise, but I have to note that all of your books are color coordinated, so that's fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
I know. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, that's so great. I love it. So people can't see that, but I have to put that out. But secondly, and I lost the second thing I was going to say. Oh no, you talk about Netflix binge watching. And people like think, oh, I binge watch for 8 hours. Why is that not on the same token?
Here's the thing. Ariane Frechaude, who is a researcher at, I want to say Florida State. Sorry, Ariane, if that's not right. I think it's Florida State.
If he's listening, that would be even more. That'd be more fantastic.
Sorry, yeah. I'll tag her in it and apologize. She did I saw her give a talk at a National Communication Association about her PhD dissertation about binge watching. And my point was, people don't see it as a problem, even though it's called binge watching. Like, it's already valiance to be negative. It's binge watching. And how is that not seen? I binge watched The Witcher. My husband maybe saw something wrong with it because I love Henry Cavill, but it was fine, right? But if I'm binging on Grand Theft Auto, right, then the alarm bells would sound off. So it's very strange that video games are the center of the moral panic. I know television came before it, and everything, Dungeons and Dragons, came before it. But even when you're saying I'm binging, people just let it go because that's not a problem.
I know.
It's absolutely wild.
I don't understand that at all. And it's really, I love that we're talking about that, because I think about these things just randomly, my wife and I will sit and watch a show and I'm like, oh, I could just watch another one. And I go, I could easily waste 6 hours of a Saturday watching something. That's not deemed to be a problem. But if I was to do the same 6 hours sitting at my computer playing Age of Empires, or lately it's been Jurassic World Evolution. Oh God, I love that game right now. But it's been that. Why is that looked and frowned upon? I just never understood that. And I think it's a good correlation between the both of them.
It is. It's really because it's at the center of the moral panic, because if you took a more objective stance, if nothing else, games are interactive, right? Yes. So it's a more active media entertainment. So theoretically, even just from the most basic stance, you think it'd be seen more positive because you're actually doing something and interacting and causing change and whatever. But it's moral panic. People don't want the science and the real answers and the nuanced discussions. What people want is a scapegoat for all of society's problems. And video games are that right now.
Exactly. And again, I think I'd be biased if I didn't bring up another aspect of gaming that probably could be negative. And I'll use this term lightly, but there's a big side of gambling. There's you pay for skins, you pay for these loot boxes, you pay for all of these things. What's your take on that?
This is another debate, open discussion that's happening in the scholarly community about loot boxes specifically and whether they are considered gambling. Now, legally, technically, they are not, as far as the legal distinctions have been, bills are up for debate and people are still talking about it, but technically they're not classified as gambling. The argument being you always get something. I go to Vegas, I play blackjack, I don't always get something. Usually they take my money. But if I buy a loot box, I get something in return, even if it's not what I want. I think that there will be more regulations in the future about maybe releasing odds or only giving cosmetic items in loot boxes and not items that give you an advantage in the game, tactical advantage, for instance. There is an active debate and people are concerned. If you're concerned about your children spending money on loot boxes, I will tell you this. Loot boxes are made for people to want to buy them. They make a noise. They're brightly colored. They're exciting. That's why we like playing the lottery or going to Las Vegas. I love Las Vegas.
Me too.
So, right? It's fun.
Who doesn't?
If you don't want your kid to do it, limit the amount of spending they can make because they are made for you to want to buy more.
Exactly. And I mean, I used to be very heavy into Counter-Strike Go. I used to love that entirely. And I was right at the time when those, I don't want to say loot boxes, because you were always guaranteed a skin of a gun that you could open, but you're paying $249, I think it was, to open up these things. You're not guaranteed anything spectacular, but if you do, you could sell it on the market for, in-game currency or like Steam currency, and you could always have that potential to, it's like I said, gambling, but look at it like the I don't even know what they call them, like they're in grocery stores, like you put the quarter in and you get, yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, those. Yeah.
Exactly. Look at it that way. You don't know what you're going to get. You're guaranteed something, but you're spending money to get it.
And what you bring up, the third-party marketplace is really where the debates are happening in terms of its gambling, because if it can be then sold for real-world money, now we're talking about a bit more of a gray area. But then it's like, is that the gaming company's responsibility? Is their third-party sites? It's not like CSGO is making this place where you can spend real money and trade and buy. So we'll see where that goes in the next couple of years. I'm sure there'll just continue to be more legislation about
right. It's curious, because when you start entering into new territories in gaming, there's always new problems that arise, and that was the most recent one that I was reading about. And like there was a kid that had bought all these skins in Fortnite or something and spent over like $10,000, and I'm thinking, like, I can't even imagine doing that, but that's me. To them, that's like their realm. That's what they're doing.
For sure. Limit spending. Oh my
Bingo.
gosh.
Yeah.
If my daughter loves Minecraft. If she spent $10,000 in Minecraft, I would have a heart attack.
That's exactly. And that's why it goes back to watching what your kids are doing and interacting with them.
Your kids are doing. Again, these boxes, you have to think that your brain isn't fully developed till your mid-20s. Okay. You literally don't have the cognitive capabilities to fully understand long-term consequences and things like that. These boxes are made to pop and throw confetti, and my friends buy them. Like, they are alluring.
Yeah.
Limit the spending, because the kids who are under mid-20s or are under especially are going to have a hard time controlling themselves to buy them. Not impossible, but a hard time.
No, absolutely. And I think, like I said, parents, just monitor what your kids are doing, even if they don't want to. Then go learn how to play Call of Duty and help them.
If your kids want to play, my 6-year-old loves Minecraft. I got to be honest, I don't like Minecraft. I think that I was like a little bit older and I kind of missed the boat.
Yeah.
But you know what? I play Minecraft.
Yeah, right.
Because she loves it, and it is what it is.
And that's exactly it. I just, when my kids, I should say when, because inevitably I know they're going to, I'm going to be invested in whatever they're going to do. I said, whether that's, football, whether that's building something, I'm going to be invested in it, because that's what they're into, and I want to bolster that. But
I understand it.
Yes.
And know the risks of it, because if you were over their shoulder, you would know about loot boxes versus getting the bill for $10,000.
Right. And then causing this big ruckus of, I didn't know this, blah, blah, blah. It's all, I get that entirely. And so anyways, that obviously is a very, very big part of what you do. Tell me about the YouTube, what you do for them, or I should say for your channel, excuse me.
Not for you, dude. Yeah,
I know, right?
I mean, if YouTube wants to pay me.
I said that if I'm thinking like, that's not the right wordage.
No. So at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody needed a hobby. My hobby became content creation on YouTube, where I talk about the science of games. So the things that we're talking about, I create videos. I have a new one every Wednesday, and it's about different aspects of game studies. So whether it's about clarifying a term, like what is gaming disorder? I had one just like clarifying what are the criteria and what do we know about it? Or if it's talking about moral panic, I have one about this is why we have the moral panic about games, and this is how we got there, and this is the history of it. So I'm trying to take what we know as a scientific community and bring it to a more generalized audience. So parents, educators, policymakers, gamers who are just interested in learning more about the science of games, how games impact us, how they don't impact us. I'm just trying to get on my soapbox and share that in the most understandable and relatable way I can.
No, and that's good though, because you're teaching a bunch of people, like we were just talking about for the last 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're teaching people that might not necessarily know what this is, but you're getting them involved in it, and I think that's super important.
Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't realize how useful the videos would actually be. So when somebody brings up gaming disorder and it's like, oh, I don't have 30 minutes to explain it to you, I can just like shoot the link. So people
Right.
listening, if you want to learn about gaming disorder or games in aggression or whatever it is, from somebody who has too many student loans and a lot of years of education, that's what the channel's for.
No, absolutely. And it for anybody that is listening, that will be linked below, and you will definitely be able to subscribe to that. So obviously we've talked about gaming for almost every aspect of gaming in 40 minutes.
Yes.
I'm glad we brought up your YouTube channel. What other things do you do outside of that realm?
I am a mom of 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That takes up a lot of my time. I wrote a children's book 2 years ago. It's a collection of 26 stories about the everyday girl doing everyday things with their everyday abilities.
Yeah.
It won an Indies Award, and I'm very proud of it. I kickstarted it, which is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
So I do that, and I continue to write short stories from that universe.
What's the book called?
Have time. The book is called Pragmatic Princess.
Where can you purchase it, view it?
You can purchase it on Amazon. If you go to buildyourown.castle.com, it might be sold out of Amazon US. It's still available on Amazon Canada. But if you email me, I got a lot in my basement. We can make an arrangement. We can make something happen. But I am writing short stories now from it. So the first one is called Invisible Friends, which is about stranger danger on the internet. And that is available on Amazon.
Good. Yes, I will make sure I get all of that in the show notes below, because I think it's very, very important that you get those shout outs, because you got a lot of irons in the fire at this point. But that's so good.
A lot of things. But you know what? I got to tell you, it's all related, because the book Invisible Friends, I wrote it because my daughter, I caught her in the chat on Minecraft when my only rule is don't be in the chat. And I thought, how am I going to teach her to not talk to strangers on the internet when the only stranger danger book I have is Berenstain Bears, and it's like a dude in the park who pops out with like a ham radio. Okay, that's not relatable. So I had to update it.
The sad thing is I know exactly which book you're talking about.
Yes!
I do.
Yes!
I do.
Yes!
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Actually, I was gonna kind of going into like the whole wrapping up thing, but you brought up something that actually I think a lot of people need to know about too, though. Like you talked about the chat, you talked about the kind of communication in game. There are very toxic people, and you're right, there is a whole other aspect of that.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to talk about that.
No, we don't. No.
The TLDR of it would be keep an eye on your kids, because there are things in the chat, to me, like when it comes to game, this is a good wrap up. When it comes to video game effects, how are games impacting my children? How are they impacting me? Like, should I be worried about violence and addiction and this and that? My biggest concern are the people you're interacting with.
Yeah.
That is always my biggest concern. Your children will be exposed to sexism and misogyny. It's just going to happen.
Absolutely.
Cyberbullying, all of these things. So stay involved, like you've been saying, is really the best way to keep one up on it.
Absolutely. And you're right. We could go into that all day.
That's a whole I'll come back. We can talk about that. Yeah.
No kidding. But so anyway, I'll wrap it up here.
Sure.
No, again, Rachel, thank you so much. And again, please, obviously I can't wait to see you at PAX, whenever that will be, whenever you decide to go. But yes, I can't wait to see that. And obviously everybody check out Take This, and also the YouTube channel. It's called Psychgeist, I believe.
Yes.
Called Psychgeist on YouTube. All the links are below in the show notes. So again, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Kowert,
for
for coming on. Again, this was a fantastic talk. I know a lot of people learned a lot, and I just love the enthusiasm and passion that you have for the video game world and for the people there. So check out Dr. Kowert on Psychgeist on YouTube, and check out the organization she works for called Take This. All links are below in the show notes. So did you like the podcast today? If you did, please like it, share, subscribe. Get us out there. We really need that positive reinforcement and feedback from people that need to hear these podcasts. Sometimes the podcasts are super in-depth about mental health and suicide, and sometimes there's just fun educational ones like today. But all podcasts have something of value, and that's why we want to get out each and every one to as many people as possible. So if you did like it, share, subscribe, follow, whatever you're on, whatever platform you're on. Give us some ratings if you're on iTunes. Give us something that keeps the podcast growing and keeps us getting out there. Check us out on our social pages. You can check out our website, which is just up and done and new and really looking great. Check us out at www.centerforsuicideawareness.org, or you can check us out on all the social pages: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Discord, all at Center for Suicide Awareness in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. If you have questions, comments, concerns, anything regarding the podcast or just about the organization in general, you can always email me, Aaron, Aaron, at centerforsuicideawareness.org. I am a real person. I respond to each and every email that I get when it comes to people asking questions or inquiries about being on the podcast. I am a real person that loves to talk and loves to hear you and wants to hear your story or wants to get you more involved with the podcast. So again, you can always email me, Aaron, Aaron, at centerforsuicideawareness.org. So one of the big things that we focused on throughout the pandemic was making sure that we got the HOPELINE out there to people that really needed it. We were really innovative when we came out with the HOPELINE because it was all digital. It was all something that you could do basically in the palm of your hand. So we created the HOPELINE. It's a text-based emotional support service. All you would have to do on your phone is text the word HOPELINE to 741-741, and you'll be connected to one of the trained specialists we have on staff free of charge. There's over 2,600 of them to talk about whatever issue you're facing. It could be something along the lines of suicide. It could be anxiety. It could be a bad day. It could be a breakup, financial issues, spousal issues, anything that you are facing that's causing a rift in your life or causing pain to you. Please reach out. We are here for you. We want to help you. You do not have to sit there and deal with those things alone. There's always somebody there, and we are always willing to talk about any issue. So again, all you have to do is text the word HOPELINE to 741-741. So it's been a couple weeks since we've gotten a couple podcasts out, and I apologize tremendously because I've had a lot of things that I had to do here, and I know it's not a very valid excuse, but it's an excuse that I have because we're always looking at other ways we can impact people and make sure that we can try everything. So I had to do a bunch of stuff on the outside to make sure that it was still going smoothly and we were all good. But I got a couple podcasts here that I'm going to get out in the next few weeks. So please hang on. We got some really cool ones coming up. I want to share them with you as quick as I can, but no worries. We will always come out with stuff. And again, if you ever have questions about the next one, email me. I'll get them out. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you always being there. It does impact me in a very positive way when I see that feedback and I see people still listening time after time. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. So as I say every single week, you are loved and you are important. And remember, you are not alone. Take care, everybody.